Good morning, everyone. This is Julie McDonald with Microcom Technologies, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's webinar with NETGEAR. Today's host is Jordan Cooper. He is our Senior Account Manager, and we also have the pleasure of having Fred Raby, and he is their Total Network Solutions Specialist, and he'll be presenting a demonstration for us today. And he is here specifically to talk to Microcom as a specialist to help us understand and see whatever it is we need as a distributor of NETGEAR business products, and specifically with Insight. So thank you guys for presenting with us today. And of course, if anyone has any questions, submit them in the question box so that Jordan or Fred can answer them at the end of today's presentation. All right, you guys, so happy to have you with me today. I am finished for now. Please go ahead, Jordan, and take it on over.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Julie. Yeah, thanks everybody for taking the time to attend this meeting today and learn more about NETGEAR's Insight. I'm hoping at this point, for those who have attended my meetings before, Insight has been beaten into your brains and you know of it, but for those people who still don't know about it, you're in for a treat. And those people who do know about it, the last presentation I did that we did a actually good overview on Insight has been quite some time. So I thought, hey, you know what? It's gone through some more of the refining fires, I call it, and it's been improved upon quite a bit. And so that's why I have also had the pleasure of bringing on Mr. Fred Raby. He is the go-to guy when it comes time to Insight. And I just said, Fred, you do this a lot better than I, and does this on a daily basis with multiple people and multiple VARs and resellers. So you guys are in for a real treat here. If you for those people who have seen this before, please also take a look and see if the changes and the differences that you can point out and see. If you are using it now, or if you haven't used it now, still take a look and see. I'm sure there's something that Fred's going to cover that you're going to learn about and possibly may or may not know, especially with some of our new products that tie into it. So enough from me. Fred, I'm going to go ahead and pass the torch for you and go ahead and do your thing.
Thank you. And so as the NETGEAR Total Network Solutions Specialist, basically my job is to help anybody who wants to learn more about Insight to be able to learn more, or to also be able to get training on how to use this. So if there is something that you see here today and you say, hey, I want to learn more about that, you can always reach out, and Microcom will happily set up a training session personalized for you, where I am happy to help you set up your Insight portal, get a project up and running. I'm also happy to do a more in-depth training using my portal as well. So with that, what we want to do today is talk about how NETGEAR can help you provide a total network solution. And what we mean by that is being able to give you a single manufacturer that you know you can go to for the products that you need, to make sure that everything is connecting as it should, guaranteed interoperability, making sure that you don't have to worry about any potential configuration issues or incompatibilities, and also being able to set up things faster and easier so that you can spend less time actually doing the work and more time helping either more customers or having more time that you're just not needing to work. And doing all of this without having to substantially grow the number of workers that you have, while still being able to make sure those customers stay up and running. Because there is a little secret with networks in general. Typically, they stay up most of the time. So on an individualized customer basis, you know, unless you have customers that are breaking their network, you know, things usually stay up and running. But when they don't, we want to make it easy for you. And with everything that we do, we hope to be the most reliable, most affordable, and easiest to use solution that you have for all of these networking solution products. What we typically see is if you do look for something that is more affordable, it may not actually be more affordable. There can be hidden costs that can associate themselves with, you know, some of the solutions that Well, if it's more affordable than NETGEAR, it's probably a lot less reliable, to put it very bluntly. And if it's more reliable than NETGEAR, it is most likely a lot less affordable. So with that in mind, I would like to look at a typical network layout. And what we hope to provide is the wireless access through our access points, the switching infrastructure through our managed switches, a router to head up the network, and an easy platform to manage all of this. Now, a closer look at some of the pieces. This PR60X is a newer product for us. You know, we've had several routers over the years, but this is one that is different than what we've done before, and one that we do expect to see for a long time coming. And if I get past all of the marketing fluff, yes, it's fast. Yes, it has high-speed ports with 10 gig and multi-gig, and even an SFP plus port for your LAN side. But the reason that we made it this way is because we wanted it to perform faster. And so we put in a lot of processing power, a lot of memory to make sure that you get as much performance through those ports as possible. So for anybody who has customers that are moving beyond gigabit internet, you'll see these 4 ports here are all multi-gig, 2.5 gig. That includes 1 WAN and 3 LAN. And we also have a 10 gig copper port that can be used either for LAN or WAN. And when you're using this in a dual WAN capacity, for the moment, it is failover only, but we do have a firmware update scheduled in the future here. I can't give the date yet, but we do have it scheduled to allow for load balancing and high availability to be able to use those simultaneously. And one of the reasons that I like to show the hardware here is because when I looked at some of the competition for other 10 gig routers that come in at an equal or lower cost point, what I see are severe limitations on the 10 gig side and how much data you can get through the firewall. With this device, we can actually say, you know, that we can get around 17.5 bidirectional, 17 gig bidirectional throughput. And for anybody who might hear a small voice in the background, my 5-year-old daughter just got back from preschool and has a little online course that she does next to me. So I apologize for any disruptions there. But with the amount of bidirectional throughput, you'll see on our data sheet, that means that you're going to see roughly 8.5 gig. Our product line manager assures me that the number was far closer to 9 gig up and 9 gig down than it was 8.5. So take that for what it's worth, that we are going to give you as much of that bandwidth as possible with the firewall on, protecting the network. And this is something that you can also manage through that cloud. And if you tell me, but Fred, my customers are all using gigabit, or maybe they're still using something that's far below gigabit, well, make this the last router they have to buy for the next long time. This piece where it heads up the network is much more difficult to swap out because it means taking the entire network down rather than just adding in. So make this the last router they need for a long time. You know, it's not very often that you can use the word investment when it comes to IT at all, because it's usually an investment in productivity, but let this be an investment in longevity as well for those customers who are not using gigabit speeds yet, and a welcome introduction for those who are already beyond gigabit. Moving along to take a closer look at the switches, what we see are NETGEAR smart switches on our remote platform known as Insight. These are switches that allow you to do things like VLANs and access control, quality of service, and most importantly, they offer a robust variety of copper and fiber ports, PoE and PoE++, going up to 60 watts per port, and models ranging from 8 to 48 ports. And if you ever need guidance on what switches to use, you are always welcome to reach out, and I will always happily work with you to make sure we are working within the Insight catalog here to get you the right switch and to make sure that it's appropriately scaled for the customer's needs. And if there is a time where those needs fall outside of the capabilities, or if this switch might be outside of the customer's budget, then let us know and we will work with you to still make sure that you have as much of that network running through NETGEAR at least as possible, to make sure that you still do have a single place to go for assistance and when things aren't going as they should, because we do want to make sure that you feel supported as well. Now, a closer look at the access points shows us that we do have a variety of access points. You'll notice when you look at the Insight Managed Catalog, all of the models that you'll see will start with a WAX6 and then followed by 2 numbers. So we affectionately refer to it as the 600 series, or our Pro Wi-Fi access points. And we have models that are both indoor and outdoor. The outdoor unit is IP55 rated, and as our product line manager likes to say that designed it, it basically stands up to everything except a direct squirt with the hose. So as long as it's under an eave or an awning, or physically on the building, it generally does well in cold weather scenarios. So if you're in an area that does get snow and gets a little cold, if it's out on a pole, it gets colder a lot faster. But typically, if it's on the side of a building, the temperature outside isn't as much of a factor. And when you look at a range on that outdoor unit, it is a directional antenna. And I have a team in India that did some open air testing and found that they were able to go up to 600 feet away and still maintain about a 100 megabit connection to the access point. And I have someone in Minnesota who claims the effective range in the winter is about 400 feet. And for him, that means taking support calls from his ice fishing hut next to his house. So Minnesota, the land of 1,000 lakes, he happens to live right next to one of those. So 400 to 600 feet as a good effective range. When you're looking at indoor coverage, basically with our model numbers, the smaller the final number on that model number, the lower the coverage area and number of devices, but also the lower the price. The higher the number, the more devices can be connected, and the more throughput is available. And we have some tools available that we will talk about here in just a minute that will help you scale the access points with any project to make sure that you are looking at the right solution. And when you are using these on Insight, Insight acts as the controller. And what we found is, even though there is a licensing fee, it is typically much, much less expensive than the controllers that we used to have to be able to offer the same capabilities, to be able to have a network that you could roam around multiple access points and have a very nice coverage area. So we're doing all of that for less. And that same Insight location that you are using as the controller can easily scale up to 200 access points. So as customers grow, literally all you have to do is scan in devices and add them to the platform. Now, we do have networks that are using above 200 access points. So if you do work with networks larger than that, be aware that we do have a use case. We are happy to help replicate anywhere where we are using 500 access points in a single roamable network across an entire campus. So you let us know what you need and we will help you. Now, even if you say, hey, that's bigger than I ever need, I only ever need 1 or 2 access points. It's still very quick and very easy to set these up. And then you can see your customers from anywhere. You can troubleshoot remotely. And that's what we want to help you do, is be able to spend less time handling all of these things and more time handling either more customers or taking a step back and not having to work so hard in the day. Now, with that as out of the way, so you see all of these 3 things coming together, managed by our Insight Cloud platform. Now, I'm sure that Jordan has shared this enough times, but just so that we have all of the buzzwords that marketing likes me to say, it is a multi-tenancy, multi-location, multi-role portal where you can have all of your devices and your customers ready at a glance. Every single one of your employees can log in with two-factor authentication, making sure that this is never the weak link that leads to any kind of security breach, and encryption standards on the platform that are bank grade. So even if you have customers that require higher levels of security with their devices, I have yet to find a security need that we cannot meet with Insight. So in looking at that, this ties together our total network solution in being able to bring all of the components of that infrastructure together. And the tool that I mentioned earlier is our Pro Wi-Fi design team. This is a service that is available to all of you as Microcom customers, and all you have to do is email prowifidesign@netgear.com. You can reach out and ask any questions that you might need to beforehand, and if you send in floor plans or blueprints, make sure that they are dimensionally sound. No bar napkins, please. But indicate how tall the ceilings are and what the walls are made out of. Make sure we do have a scale for measurement, and we will heat map that deployment for you, free of charge. We use a piece of software called Ekahau, and this is very expensive to license every year. So what we found is it may not work for the individual companies that we work with in supporting these types of deals, but for NETGEAR to use it to support all of our our valued resellers, this is a valuable tool that we want to make sure you have access to. That being said, when you submit all of the information, you will get back a report, typically within 2 days or so. Sometimes that can go a little bit faster. Of course, sometimes the demand could be a little bit higher and it may take a little bit longer, but for the most part, you can count on that within 2 days. And we can either show you an ideal deployment, making sure that you have great coverage everywhere that you indicate that you want coverage, or if you let us know where you have room for access points and where the cabling already is, we can also show you what the broadcast will look like from those locations, highlighting any potential dead spots. Now, if you do have dead spots and you cannot cable to them, don't worry, NETGEAR is here to help. When you have our access points connected to Insight, they are capable of what we call instant mesh, which allows you to connect access points via a wireless backhaul so that you can plug an access point into a power outlet anywhere that you have power, and it will wirelessly link to the next closest access point and provide that same continuous roamable network. Now, the other thing that we want to do today is actually showcase the solution. So in looking at,
Real quick, back to the previous screen, just for 2 seconds. For those of you who do want to utilize this awesome tool and send the email to Pro Wi-Fi Design, it'll also help me, especially as the account manager for Microcom. If you put in that email that, hey, you plan on purchasing this, or you got this from the Microcom webinar, it helps me. That way we can make sure that pricing and the discounts get loaded and are deep as possible, so that way you guys can get it for the best possible price. So when you do send that email, just put the indication that you got this. So you're going to go to Microcom for once we build out the purchase, and that'll just make sure we get some good pricing for you. Sorry, carry on, Fred.
Yep, and something good to know, I am on that email, and my job is to make sure that once the engineers have done their work, that we do have you lined up, for purchasing. So never fear as well. If you do forget to mention that you work with Microcom, I'll be most likely the one following up with you to make sure that you do have a place that you can procure these and that you're getting the best possible price, because of course we also want you to be profitable, or else you're not likely to sell our stuff. So. Now, jumping over to the platform, what you can see here is the portal that I use for all of my demonstrations, and it has my home network on it. Now, the tool that we are looking at today is Insight Pro, and we do have an Insight Premium service as well. And with the differences between Pro and Premium, from the device level, functionality, there is no difference. You can manage the devices and the policy on the devices the same way. Now, how you administer the portal, though, itself is very different between the two. And with Insight Pro, you get the ability to have customers in there as an organization, and then the organizations can then have multiple locations. And so you can keep all of your customers umbrellaed appropriately. You can also create as many different logins as you need for the portal, and those will either be additional administrators or those will be what we call managers. Either way, when we do have the organization location view for a customer, that does let us do things like having organization-wide wireless policy. So with this fictitious customer here, what I've done is created 2 networks. Any Insight location can have up to 8 different SSIDs. So you could potentially have a customer with multiple locations needing up to 8 networks, and you know that you only ever have to set those up once. Every location that I create under that organization will have that wireless policy automatically implemented, meaning that at each location, all you need to do is scan in your devices into Insight, plug them into the internet, and away they go, and they will be set up and ready to go. Now, in looking at a location that actually has some equipment in it, in my home here, I do have represented the PR60X router, and if I come over here to devices, we'll be able to see all of those, in addition to our MS510 TXUP, which is my favorite Wi-Fi switch that we have right now, primarily because this is a multi-gig switch that also has UPoE++, Ultra 60 PoE++, my pardon there. And this allows us to power any access point in the NETGEAR catalog and run them at either 2.5 gig for all of our current Wi-Fi 6 access points, or I'll give you some sneak peek information because in March, we will be unveiling our Wi-Fi 7 access points, and we will be starting with something called our WBE 750, and that access point will have roughly 19,000 megs of throughput, meaning that it actually requires a 10 gig connection. And this switch gives you 8 total copper ports. 4 of them cap out at 2.5 gig, 4 of them cap out at 10 gig, and you also have 2 fiber uplinks that are 10 gig as well. So an excellent switch to make sure that you have very fast Wi-Fi for those customers who demand that higher speed. And then you'll see that I also have one of our access points represented here. Now, not only can I jump around between those devices, I can just go right into the device there, but you'll see that as I go across the top, those category views are always static, even if the customer doesn't have those devices. But of course, if you don't have the router, then you won't see it there. Now, this means that it is very easy to jump from device to device. So I can go from the router, like you saw, over to our access points. And if I scroll past all of the fantastic information that lets you know how the network is doing, you will see that I can go into the individual access point. However, I feel this section is best left to fine-tuning the configuration or doing any kind of troubleshooting, because when you manage the network itself, you won't go into the individual access point. You will come over here into what I call the location settings for the wireless, and then you manage it as a controller. Now, you'll have to forgive the names here for my networks. They are at my home, and I admit that they are silly. But what you do see here is that I do have network segmentation happening so that I have an isolated VLAN. And in a residential setting, this is where I recommend cordoning off any IoT devices so that if there ever is a time that somebody figures out how to hack my doorbell, the computers that I do my banking on are not at risk. And in a business environment, if you do have customers moving to any IoT devices, this is also not a bad thing to do. But in a business world, obviously, there's more application for traffic segmentation because you are more likely to have guest networks or other devices that you may want to keep separate from others. And setting up those VLANs is also very easy. When I go over here to wired, I can go down into my individual switch, but I can also come into the location settings here and manage policy across multiple switches all at the same time. And that goes a step beyond with VLANs, because VLANs are one of the few pieces of policy that actually need to be propagated across all of your router, switches, and access points at the same time. And you also want to have some congruency there. If you misconfigure those, then you'll find that you could have all of your access points losing connection to the internet. Or likewise, your switches, depending on if you get the settings right on the router. And what we see here is this scales appropriate to the equipment at that location. So on the very first step here, I can configure that VLAN. On the next step, I can tag all of my ports across all of the switches and the router that are appropriate to make sure that that VLAN is properly tagged across the entirety of the network. I can then create a wireless SSID based on that VLAN, and I can then create the DHCP server so that I know that all of the devices joining that network have the appropriate address. And
hey, Fred.
And I see that we're getting to the time here, so I was planning on wrapping up, Jordan, with just letting people know.
Perfect.
When you do look at those clients, you are able to see what VLAN they are associated with, and making sure that you can keep them all appropriately siloed, so that if you have any troubleshooting that you need to do, you can handle that appropriately. But I would like to leave some time here for any questions that anybody would like to ask with the remaining time.
Thank you so much, Fred. I'm going to jump in and ask Jordan if he needed to say anything before we got started with questions.
Nope, we're good. I appreciate Fred's knowledge, and like I said, there's a lot that can go to Insight, and so there's even more stuff. So feel free to reach out to your rep at Microcom or any of us, and we're more than happy to go a further in-depth demo and get you going. But yeah, let's turn it over for some questions for the last few minutes.
Thank you guys so much for that wonderful presentation, and I do have questions for you. Let's get started with the first one. Let's see, here we go. Fred and Jordan, what is the role of mobile devices in managing networks through NETGEAR Insight Cloud Portal?
Yeah, I'll take that. We do have mobile hotspots that are able to be managed on Insight as well. I don't have them here, so I always forget to show them off, but this will let you see the signal strength that that mobile hotspot is getting, and can also act as a very nice backup internet source for the PR60X, because then you're also able to take it with you as needed, but then keep it at the office for those times where you might need that, that extra internet source. So that is the mobile section there. We also have a mobile app on Android and Apple that lets you facilitate virtually all of the policy changes that you might need to make within the network, and is also the easiest way to add devices to the network, because you are able to simply scan a QR code on the device, adding it into the location.
Thank you so much, Fred. I've got another question here ready to go. And it says, how does NETGEAR Insight simplify firmware updates and maintenance tasks for network devices?
Yep, that is something that I'm not always able to show in a truncated demo, but you can see firmware updates if all of your devices are up to date, if there are any updates available. You can also schedule those updates to go. So if you have a particular maintenance window, maybe it is the 4th Saturday of every month, maybe it's at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you would like that to repeat on that regular basis, you can have those updates go automatically, and you will get reporting in your inbox every time you have devices attempt a firmware update and successfully update. So you will be able to make sure that everything has updated appropriately.
Thank you so much, Fred. Next question here for you. What analytics and reporting tools are available within NETGEAR Insight Cloud Portal for performance analysis?
Yep, so we do have reports that can be generated so that you can showcase the particular facets of the network that you would like to show off. And if I can pull one up here fast enough, you do also have an automated weekly report or monthly report that comes in. And it looks like I do have one here to show what the default is. So this is just the auto report that is generated, and then I can go in and automate that, showing devices online with Insight, also showing data that was used, what the PoE power usage looks like. Also, if there were any devices that lost communication. In this case, I did have a time that I accidentally hit the power strip connecting to all of these as I was looking to unplug something else. And so I did have to reboot my network there. But this will show, the devices came right back up online. So that does count it as 100%. But you will be able to see all of these things are customizable as well. So if you have particular things that you would not like to show or that you would like to highlight, you can have all of that reporting go out automated, either directly to the customer, or you can have it go to you to be able to send out. And you can also customize those reports with your company's logo. And you'll also see that I have in here a logo for this particular organization, which was also automatically added to the report.
Thank you so much for that, Fred. Next question here for you. How does NETGEAR Insight support quality of service for prioritizing critical applications and services?
Mm-hmm. All of our PR60X and our smart switches, along with the access points, have auto QoS, which will automatically prioritize voice and video packets like we see needed for this kind of a meeting over the network. So even if you are not doing any kind of VLAN prioritization, you can still handle that. However, we do also give you the ability to prioritize particular VLANs. So if you do have, say, a mini data center with servers and storage that absolutely need to be prioritized on the switch, you can ensure that those VLANs are prioritized. And you can also get into all of the pertinent QoS settings to make sure that if you do have priority lanes that you are giving, and you need to get down to, I believe, even the DSCP queue mapping level, you can do that as well for prioritization.
Thank you so much, Fred. I've got about 3 questions left here. Next one is, how does NETGEAR Insight assist businesses in optimizing their bandwidth usage and reducing data congestion?
So the biggest thing there would definitely be the auto QoS, because usually the data that people notice getting congested is voice and video packets. So that does happen automatically. However, you are able to go in at a glance and see how much bandwidth are you getting. Especially on the router, you can come in at the device level, and under troubleshooting here, sorry to go through so quickly, but you can also do things like a DNS lookup or a speed test, making sure that you are seeing as much bandwidth as possible, that you're getting that testing directly from the router rather than from a device on the network competing for other resources. And with that, you are also able to troubleshoot along different points of the network to see if any problem that you're noticing is isolated to a single device or if it's happening across the entirety of the network.
Thank you so much, Fred. Next question here. What are the subscription lengths of Insight Pro device credit that a customer can purchase?
Mm-hmm. Most of our devices come with the first year included, and we will make sure that if there is any question on that, that Microcom has a nice complete list of how that all breaks down. What you'll see when you add devices to the portal is it will show you when those first years expire, or when that time expires. And from there, you can then add license keys that give you different terms. They are available in 1, 3, and 5-year varieties, and they can be scheduled out up to 4 years in advance. So if you do have customers that are not looking for any type of annualized engagement, or they would like all of the licensing purchased up front, you can schedule like I say, you can ensure that those licenses will be applied to that particular customer organization, and up to 4 years in advance, you can make sure that they are set for when they will activate. So the short answer is 1, 3, and 5 years, but you can also be very customizable on any upfront time that you want to make sure your customers have guaranteed.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Last question here, and you may have touched on this already, and if you don't mind, how does a customer contact support for Insight Pro?
So support would go the same way as it normally does. You would call our 888 NETGEAR number. And as always, with all of our devices, you do get 90 days of phone, chat, and email support. And then after those 90 days, you can still reach out to support via the support portal. If you go to support.netgear.com and log in, you'll be able to see that you do have a chat option. Oh, it helps if you spell things right, though. And we do also have pro support contracts available, also in 1, 3, and 5 year varieties, to make sure that you are able to have access to 24/7 phone support for any times that you would rather reach out by phone or by email instead of just chat.
Thank you so much, Fred, for answering all those questions for us today. And thank you to everyone for attending. And if anyone has any further questions, of course, please feel free to contact your sales rep or email us at sales@microcomtech.com. And if you wish to view any of the products mentioned or shown today, please be aware that this webinar has been recorded and it will be uploaded to our Microcom YouTube channel so we can all view it again and get all of this valuable information. Fred, Jordan, thank you guys so much for today's information and your wonderful presentation or demonstration that you shared with us. Everybody have a fantastic day, and we will catch up with NETGEAR very soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.